Hey, Margie here. Welcome to the Wake Up, Pray Up, Boss Up podcast, the show that helps Christian moms prioritize their physical and mental health so they can boldly step into God's calling. I'm your host, Margi Ruiz.
Today's conversation is for anyone who feels a little out of sorts, maybe a little unsettled, like something looks fine on the outside, but it doesn't really feel aligned on the inside. I'm sitting down with my new friend Margie, and her husband have just celebrated 25 years of marriage, which is amazing, and they're stepping into a brand new season as empty nesters. And what happened next? Well, it's only something that can be described as God moving a mountain. I am so excited for Margie to be here and for us to dive into the story. Welcome, Margie. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and share with your beautiful audience.
Yay, me too. All right, guys. So before we dive in, you know that I love a good fun fact. And Margie, you call yourself a Texarican, born in Puerto Rico, raised in Texas. And I just love this like blend of cultures and strength and personality. And I have a feeling that it plays into what we're going to talk about today. But being a Texarican, what is something that people always assume about you that is totally wrong?
You know, it's funny, being a Texarican, first of all, I don't look Puerto Rican. So
No.
people are shocked when I start talking in Spanish. My husband has a big accent, but I don't. So it's
Yes.
funny when people just assume. And on many occasions, people have been very very bold in what they're saying and not realizing that I can understand what they're saying. So I've
Oh,
had
I'm sure.
interesting things. But being a Texarican, you know, it's funny. I try to say that more and more because how do I say this? Like sometimes I'm too Puerto Rican for my American friends, and sometimes I'm too American for my Latin friends. And
Yes.
I'm noticing more and more that it's almost like we're our own culture out there of people that are Latin but
Yeah.
raised in the States, and we're really just 100% both. I mean, I would say I'm
Yeah.
100% Latin and I'm 100% very
Yeah.
American. So it's just a cool. I mean, I love it. I embrace it,
Yeah.
and
I love that.
I love it.
I think it's fun. I can definitely, yes, seeing if those that y'all are listening, go look at the cover photo because you will see that she is a gorgeous blonde lady and she does not look one bit like a Puerto Rican, but I
Uh,
can tell a hint of accent. So
It's funny, and I think that once people know, oh yeah, okay, maybe that's what she says. Every once in a while, there's certain words that I don't say right, and people are like, oh, there
yes.
it is, I hear it.
I love it. It's like hiding in plain sight. It's so cool. Oh, I love that. All right. So today we are talking about what happens when God whispers and then suddenly says move and you actually listen. So, Margie, you said something that really struck me. You said that you felt out of sorts, like life wasn't fully reflecting your values. And I think that so many women can relate to that feeling. So, can you walk us through that season? Like what felt misaligned in that time?
Oh, girl. You know, we, where do I start?
Hmm.
You know, I have 4 kids, and it's been my privilege and honor for God to grant me the gift of being a mother, right? You have 4 kids. So,
Yeah.
you know that
Yeah.
for that season of my life, that was my life, right? I mean, you're in it, you're in the thick of it. And as my kids started getting older, it's weird because you think you need to have these things. You know, you
Yeah.
think you need to have the big house and you need to have these things because I don't know, because you want your kids to be able to have their friends over or do this or
Yeah.
do that. And so 4 years ago, I guess 5 years now, we bought this house. It was an old, great location, great bones, but it needed a lot of work. And
Mm.
we got into it. We did a lot of work when we first moved into it. And then, you know, obviously had to kind of stop and recover
Yeah.
before we can do it
Yes.
again. And in that process, one of them graduated from college, the second one went to college, and then now my last one just went to college last
Mm.
August. And it just, I don't know, like we were at this stage where it's like, okay, the kids were leaving and we were going to finish a remodel. You know,
Yeah.
I was getting quotes and I was getting bids, and
Yeah.
I was going to start getting the remodel, and I just, it just doesn't feel
Yeah.
right, you know, like it
Yeah.
just, you know, God speaks so loudly. He
Yeah.
really does. But we have to get quiet to be able to hear
Yes.
him. And
Yes.
my life, as I'm sure most of your people listening, is noisy. It's noisy, especially if you have a large family. Like there's always
Yeah.
something going on. There's always a sport. There's always this. There's always church, and there's always this, and the
Yeah.
internet, and everything else. And there's no quiet. And so, what happened for my husband and I? We actually celebrated 25 years last April, and then my youngest went to college in August. So we had planned this big trip. It was the dream
Yeah.
trip. We were going to go to Fiji in October,
Oh,
and
yes.
oh my God, it was amazing. So,
Ah,
I mean, we planned it for years, and this is the dream, right? But what happened, what God did was so something we never imagined. I mean, He
mm,
truly, we got quiet. I mean, that
yeah.
trip,
Yeah.
we truly, and listen, I had my phone. I mean, nowadays with technology, you
Sure.
still have your phone, but something about being
Yeah.
gone like that you really turn it off.
Mm,
And God just really spoke to us. And the crazy
mm,
thing is, we went to this church. We were supposed to go to church. We were there for 2 weeks. And the first Sunday, we were supposed to go to church. And I got sick. And so I didn't get to
mm,
go. And then the next Sunday, we went to church. And Jessica, it was crazy. I mean, we went into
mm.
that church. And I mean, look, I talk about it and I still feel goosebumps. Like
Yeah.
it was so beautiful.
Mm,
The people were so committed. I mean, everyone there from the youngest to the oldest was singing. I mean, it sounded like a
mm,
beautiful choir.
yeah.
And God just spoke to us there like, you need to let the stuff go. Like, it is
Yeah.
time to move. It is time to let it go.
Mm,
And we both looked at each other when we were out of there, and we both looked at each other and said, we need to sell the house.
mm.
It was crazy because we
Wow.
didn't talk about it. We didn't,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, we're getting bids. I mean, I had,
Yeah.
you know, designs and everything of what we're going to do next. And we said,
Yes.
we need to sell the house. And we got back. Okay. So that was October 19th. We
Yeah.
went to this church. We flew home on the 20th, and we were sick when we first got back. So that week was kind of, you know
Mm,
how it is after being gone for a few weeks or whatever.
yes.
We turned our house in December 21st. So
Wow.
we came back, we called our realtor, and she's a good friend. And so she's like, I don't want you to sell the house. She lives down the street. So she's like, I don't want
Sure.
you to sell the house. And
Yes.
I was like, and I said, Rula, like, we're selling the house. This is God's plan for us, and we're going to sell the house. And she's like, are you sure this is what you want to do? And she goes, yeah. I said, yeah. So she came over
Yeah.
and she said, okay, well, we're going to list it high. And I said, listen, we're not in a hurry. We don't have to sell the house. So I'm not in a hurry. She goes, oh, the
Yeah.
market in Florida right now is not great. It's going to take a while. So, well, no worries. Just stick it on the market. Girl,
Wow.
she announced it for sale, and someone called and said, I want it. And then came out to market 2 weeks later, and they came the first day and put an offer. And 24 hours later, we hadn't responded to
Yes.
the offer yet because you have like 24 hours. And they said, what do we have to do for them to give us the house? So then they bought the house, and they had a contingency for selling their house. So I said, okay, well, that'll take a few weeks. That'll take a while. So let's just take it off the market, let them, no, you can't take it off the market. Anyway, part of the story is they sold their house in 2 days.
Goodness. That's amazing. When God is in the details, there is nothing that will stop him.
It was complete insanity. Now it's the holidays. My kids are coming home. So the people called and said they wanted the house. They put an offer the first day. And then I had 24 hours to respond. But we had an open house. We had like pictures. We had all this stuff going
Yeah.
on. And we hadn't even
Wow.
responded yet. And they called back and said, we want the house. What do we need to do? And they were, it was such a God thing because I thought this is the house that my grandkids are going to grow up in. I mean, I don't have grandkids
Yeah.
yet, but I will someday.
Yeah.
But then these people have a 10-week-old. They were they were a couple in their 40s who said they didn't want children,
Yeah.
and God had another
Oh,
plan. And they had
yep.
their first baby at 45. And
Oh
they
my
were so
goodness.
excited for their son to grow up in this house. And it was like
Mm,
God just gave me that peace. Like, this is
yeah.
exactly what's supposed to happen.
Yep.
And so then they had to sell their house. So they had a contingency to sell their house. I said, okay, well, that'll take
Yeah.
months. 2
Mm.
days, they sold their house.
Wow.
Yeah. So then here I am. And I had 2 weeks that I had to be out of town for a conference in December. So I had to be gone for
Oh
2
my
weeks.
goodness.
And so we were supposed to close January 6th. And they asked us if we could close before Christmas.
Oh,
And
sure. Yeah.
yeah, which I was like, okay, that's insane. But we were going to be gone for Christmas. So I didn't have the
Yeah.
heart to leave them homeless with this baby when we weren't even
Yeah.
going to be in town.
Yes.
So
Yes.
praise God. I have a friend who's a professional organizer, and she told me, listen, I will help you. We either get stressed for 9 days or we get straight for 9 months. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what the time is. Moving is
Yeah.
stressful. Let's
Yes.
do it. It was
Yeah.
insanity, Jessica. Like, it was complete
Oh,
insanity. but it was guided insanity. Like
Hmm.
when you actually get quiet and you listen to God and you trust God. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I say I trust God, but then I want to hang on to it and hang on to it. And
Yes.
so I just
Yes.
having to learn to say, God, I trust you and I
Yeah.
surrender. Woo, that's
Yeah.
hard.
Yes. Oh, it is. It is because we want to hold on to the things and go, all right, Lord, I'm giving it to you, but I'm still clenching my fists. But what we really have to do is completely let it go and say, God, this is yours. This is not mine. And whatever you want, I'm here for it. So I wonder though, before like the actual physical changes happen, now looking back, was there something that you sensed in your spirit that might have been changing before it physically did change?
Absolutely. I listen, I don't know what that house symbolized, you know, like
Mm,
I wanted to be on the water. Listen, I'll be honest. I wanted to be on the water. I wanted to be on the water. I wanted to have this house on the water. And we don't even have a boat. So it's kind of silly. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that house meant something that
mm,
really wasn't filling us because I'll tell you what was happening. It's not that we couldn't afford the house because we could totally afford the house, but it was
yeah.
limiting what we were able to do. So we, for
Mm,
example, like my husband and I love to go on mission work. We love it. We used to go
yes.
for years. We were going at least once a year. We were going, but then COVID happened, and we
Yeah.
haven't gone on a mission trip since 2019. And
Oh,
doing mission work, it's a beautiful thing that we're called to, but it costs money, right? I mean,
it does. Yes.
mission work is not
People
cheap.
often forget that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, because yeah, you give your time, but you also had to pay to get there, right? So
Yes.
and fund yourself. So we weren't doing that, Jessica. We hadn't been on a mission
Yeah.
trip since 2019, and the first thing we
Mm,
did when we saw the house, we signed up to go back to Uganda in June. And
yes.
I know I'm so excited that we went in 2019. We took our my second daughter, and it was beautiful. And now we signed up to
Mm,
go. We're going in June to Uganda again. So now we're able to do these things because we're not tied up to
yeah.
this
Mm,
material thing that we thought was
yes.
so important.
Yes. And, I feel like the Lord allows us to go through those things, allows us
Mhm.
to, everything works out, and you know that you're in His will. You're like, yes, Lord, thank you for everything that you've given me here. But when we aren't sensitive to His Spirit and to His conversation, His voices, like you said, He's really loud when you're listening, right? When
Yeah.
you're close and you're there, He's very loud, and you're like, wow, I don't know how I missed this before, but he allows us to give him the opportunity to show us what we can do next, but to trust him in what he's, because that looked beautiful, having the house and having, like, this is a dream and it's on the water and it's gorgeous and we're going to remodel and we're going to live here until we die, and it just sounds like a beautiful thing. And that was your plan, that was the Lord's plan for you for a short period of time. But what you didn't know was that he was working on this family in the background, that would be their future home. And I just think that is so amazing how God orchestrates these things behind us that we don't even know. But if we are obedient and we are willing and to let him move, then he will. And he will move mountains, won't he?
I mean, really, it's unbelievable, really. I mean, it was a four-bedroom house that we had to empty, and not just that, we didn't know where we were moving to. So we
Yes.
we signed a lease the night before we moved. But I
Oh
got to
my
tell you,
goodness.
Jessica, when I made that decision, I mean, looking back is insane. But when I made that decision, like I just trusted God, and my friends were
Yeah.
like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "I don't even know," but it's I'm gonna go wherever God's gonna put me. And we ended up
Yeah.
in this beautiful condo, and it's so much easier. And now I'm
Mm,
realizing, and it's interesting because I know you're living in a small space, and
yes.
I realized how much time I spent taking care of that stuff that wasn't
Yes.
giving me joy. I dreaded it. And
Yes.
listen, there's nothing wrong with having a beautiful home, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's great,
Yeah.
but it does take time, and it does
Yeah.
take thing, which is great. But you got to make sure that you're clear if that's what you want. And I think sometimes we
Yeah.
we get into these things, and then we just do because we always do, and we don't stop to think, is this serving my purpose now?
Yes. And to be sensitive to what is your purpose? What is your calling? What is the Lord calling you into doing? And is the wanting to keep up with the Joneses and have this beautiful thing, is it taking away from the time that God's asking you to have a coffee with a friend? He's asking you to go to this small group with, a friend that maybe wouldn't have gone without you, but oh no, I've got to clean the house. I've got to take care of this. I've got to, and we lose sight. We lose sight of what the Lord has really called us to do. And faith in action is doing the thing, not just saying, it's not just mouth work, but it's actively seeking him and seeking what he wants for our lives, and then reevaluating, is what I'm doing right now where I'm supposed to be? And I love that God brought you out to Fiji, of all places, pulled you
Right.
out to show you that there's beauty in simplicity and in family and togetherness time, and that it's not all about the what we call on bus life is bricks and sticks. It's not all about the bricks and sticks house. It is about that relationship. And I can hear that through your voice and talking about, yes, it's a smaller place, but now I have more time to serve the Lord and to serve others because I'm not worried about all the dust bunnies collecting everywhere, which is
Oh
just
my
so cool.
gosh. And I keep thinking, if I would have moved forward with the remodel, that would have meant, men in my house every day and the dust and the cleaning. And you know how it is, the construction dust. Like
Yes,
you clean it and it lands and it clean it and lands and it's never
everywhere.
ending. And that would have delayed everything that God is calling me to
Hmm.
do for at least another year. At least
Yeah,
another year.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm just so grateful that we were able to walk away of life pretty much for 2 weeks and listen. But
yeah.
my encouragement to your listeners is,
Yes,
how do we listen here? And that's what because now
yes,
I'm back, right? And even though I'm in a small place or
yes,
whatever, I'm back in real life.
yes.
How do we make sure that we're listening? Because I do
Hmm.
believe that God speaks. We just have to be willing to listen.
Yeah, yeah. And when God says to move, physically or figuratively, he moves it for us. So there is that chaos, there is that speed and the logistics and all the what ifs. But Jesus says in John 14:27, he says, my peace I give you and my peace I leave with you. And you said that in the very beginning you weren't feeling at peace and that it might be some time, you needed that quiet. So I would love to talk about that. What does that look like, finding your peace, finding that quiet and stillness in the hustle and bustle of real life?
I mean, you have to be intentional. That's the thing. And I think, unfortunately, in our world right now, God is an afterthought, or people are embarrassed to
Yeah,
talk about God, or they're embarrassed about putting him back in the center. And I
yeah,
shared with you
yeah.
before we started recording that last week, my daughter goes to school in Fort Worth, Texas. She goes to TCU, and we were there for the weekend and we got to go to the rodeo. And
Nice.
I haven't been to the rodeo since I was a little girl, and it was so fun. But I was so impressed because the first thing they did was pray. That everyone stand up and take off their hats to pray, and
Yeah.
then we did the Pledge of Allegiance. And they were very vocal about God being a
Mm,
guest of honor in this rodeo, this huge arena. It was the
yeah.
finals, so it was crowded, and every person, every cowboy that won gave glory to God, and it was so
Yes.
beautiful. And why have we gotten away from that? We wonder why there's so much stress in the world, and we're all running around so stressed
Yes.
out, but we want to keep God out of our lives.
Yeah.
And for
Yeah.
me, it was such a beautiful reminder last week that, listen, God has to be in the center of our homes, of our
Yeah.
marriages, of our parenting, of our
Yeah.
everything. And life is just easier. And when I look at what I just went through with the whole moving and emptying the house, it was crazy. I mean, there was a lot of sleepless nights. I was
Hmm.
up all night doing all this stuff, but it was
Yeah.
guided and it was easy. Does that make sense? Like, it was a lot of hard
Mm,
work,
yes.
but it was
Yeah.
easy work. And I think a lot of times
Yeah.
our lives feel such turmoil because we're fighting against God's will.
Hmm. Yes. Yes. Well, I mean, Jesus even says that, when you yoke to me, that my yoke is easy and my burden is light. It doesn't mean that it's all going to be comfortable, but it's going to mean that he's right there with us carrying the load. And that when we are walking faithfully with him, that it it just makes it doable and it makes it peaceful. And while there is chaos in the world, it doesn't mean that what he's bringing you through has to be chaotic when we stay close to him. But you're right, there's so many women out there, men and women, but they are distracted by we just talked about this with social media. They're distracted
Mm-hmm.
with what their life could be. They're distracted with not wanting to offend other people. So let's keep Jesus out of the mix of it. And that is not what we are called to do as Christians. We are called to be bold and we are called to be strong and courageous and not be afraid to speak the gospel. And if our our type of faith is going to be timid, God says, either be hot or cold. Do not be lukewarm, or I will spit you out of my mouth. And that breaks my heart for so many people, because you think that they are hot and then they show actually they're lukewarm, and they aren't even, they're just covering it up. And it breaks my heart that there's so many women out there that are going to be spit out. And I don't want that for any of our listeners. Friend, if you are listening, I do not want that for you. And so what can we be doing practically? What can these ladies be doing that will keep us in alignment with the Lord?
I mean, you got to talk to him every day. I mean, you got to start our days. And I always start my day with gratitude. I have this thing I do with my husband every day. We call it the 10-5-5. So we start with 10 things we're grateful for, 5 things we let go and let God. That's been huge for us.
Mm,
And I'll be real honest, since we moved and it's been kind of crazy, we got away from writing it down, but I used to always write it down in a notebook, which is so powerful because if
yes.
you truly wake up in the morning and you say, God, I am grateful for my marriage. I'm grateful for the food I eat. I'm grateful for
Yeah.
the gym I went to, or I'm grateful that I have a car to drive. We forget, especially when you're going through a hard time. And listen, last year before all this happened, we went through a really hard time with one of my children, and praise God, she's good. But we went through a really, really hard time. And when you're going through tough times, it's just hard sometimes to remember all the things in your life. And I love that you quoted
Yeah.
that verse, which is one of my favorites: peace I give you, peace I leave you. He promised peace no matter what. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of times, especially for women, we feel that it's weird or not right to feel joy when
Yeah.
you're going through a hard time. But that was God's gift to us. He came in person and said, I give you my peace. And when you hang on to that, no matter what you're going through, look at what you listen, if any day above ground is a good day, right? If you
Yes.
woke up this
Yes.
morning, you have something to be grateful for. If you're breathing oxygen in your lungs, you have something to be grateful for. And yes, there might
Yes.
be tough times that you're going through, but there's so much to be grateful for. And giving things to God in the morning, and again, what you
Mm,
said, truly giving it to God and say,
yeah.
I let go and I let God, and just
Yeah.
trust that his plan is so much better than anything you could ever come up with. My
Yeah.
husband and I walk, we moved, we're living in a condo on the beach. I mean, I am pretty lucky. I live in Florida, but we went to take the dogs out and we looked at the ocean and we start laughing. It's like, oh my gosh, like we could have never imagined when all 3 months ago. I mean, this just happened. Like
Yeah.
we could have never imagined the peace that we're feeling. And listen, life is not
Yeah.
perfect, right? We all have things that
Sure.
we're dealing with,
Yeah.
but there were so many things that we were forcing that weren't God's plan for us, and they were causing such turmoil and stress. And
Yeah.
now those things are gone, right? But we
Yeah.
had to take that step in obedience, and we had to trust. And listen, I had friends. I mean, one of my good friends, and I love her dearly, and I love that her heart was in the right place. But she sat me down and said,
Mm,
"You say you want to take away stress from your family, but you're causing more stress by selling your house, and your kids are not going to have a place to come home to, and all these things." And her heart was in the
yeah.
right place, but I knew I was following God's call for my life. I knew that I was doing that. And
Yeah.
then you got to stay strong, right? In that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and with our life, we travel full time, and so we got and continue to get a lot of that. Is I don't understand what you're doing or why you're doing it, and I want you to come back. And I'm like, thank you for your opinion, but what we are doing for the Lord, and we're not asking questions. We are being obedient, and there
Mm,
is peace in it. And when the time is right, and people have asked all the time, well, how long will you do this for? I'm like, well, until the Lord calls us to something else that I don't have a
mm,
time, but we're going to be obedient in that time. So going back, because it's not about me, but going back to, so you said that 10 things to be grateful for, the 5 things to let go and surrender.
And then 5 things to pray, at least five, but 5 things that you're
Yeah.
praying for.
Yeah.
And what's beautiful, if you get in this habit, I love doing this when the kids were little. We used to do it on the way to school. Like I'd do it, I'd fast wrap it in the car with them.
Yeah.
But what I love about this, if you actually take the time to write it down, and I told my husband just yesterday, I said, okay, we need to get back to sitting down and
Yes.
writing it down, because if not, it just becomes another thing a lot of times we'll do it on the way home from the gym. We just do it in the
Hmm.
car. But I said, look, we
Yeah.
got to,
Yeah.
because what's so beautiful about writing this down is that you can go back and see, okay, so I was praying for my friend Jessica because whatever, and look how far she's come. And you forget, right? And
Yes.
then that prayer becomes a gratitude. So then you
Yes.
can see, I mean, God is working in your life every single day. And I think
All the
when you're
time.
going through a tough time, I know someone's out there hurting right now. I know one of your
Yeah.
listeners, probably more, are
Yes.
struggling with
Yeah.
something. And I want you to hear this. God is working through this in you,
Yeah.
and something
Yeah.
beautiful is going to come out of it. And I mean that with all my heart. And I don't want to downplay your pain, because I've been there.
Yeah.
We've gone through some very painful
Yeah.
things in my family, but God is working, and he works all things for your
Yes.
good. And so when you write this stuff down, when you're praying for your child, or you're praying for your friend, or you're praying for your marriage, or you're praying for whatever it is, and then it could be a month, a year, 5 years, 10 years, you can go back and say, wow, look how
Yeah.
far we've come, and look at God's
Yeah.
hand. It's such a beautiful practice. So I would highly
Yes.
encourage your listeners to do that.
I love that, because you're right. That I always talk about the pen to paper. When you take pen to paper, there's something that happens with your brain. It just slows it down. And you're right. When you can go back and look at it and you can see it. And far too often we're not doing that. We're not
Mhm.
seeing what God is doing in our lives right now. What is the things that we can be grateful for? And some people think that it has to be some grandiose thing. Oh, I have to thank him for all these big things. No, thank you, Father, that you've given me a roof over my head. Thank you that I have
Mhm.
shoes to wear outside. Thank you that you are taking care of our family. Thank you for the sun in the sky. It doesn't have to be huge, but when you start to do these gratitudes, when you start to write these things that you're thankful for, the Lord, you want to look for more things, right? You get to see more things, and then they might get deeper after that. But it doesn't have to start with some huge thing. But writing them down, I definitely agree with you, Margie. Writing them down is so important because you can go back.
Absolutely. And Tony Robbins says that where focus goes, energy flows. And
Mm,
when you focus on gratitude, then you just see more of it. It's kind of like,
yeah.
when you're first pregnant, all of a sudden you look around and everyone's pregnant.
Yes.
Or when you
Hmm.
buy a red car, all of a sudden, gosh, there's so many red cars everywhere, right? Where
Yes.
focus goes, energy flows. So if you can start
Yes.
your day first thing and looking at what's good in your life, it'll just
Hmm.
change everything.
Yeah, I was just with my son about this yesterday because he was talking about all the things on social media and all the negativity in the world, and how if you look at facts, these things don't look right and these things do, and not getting into any of the details, but I told him that very similar thing. Like, when you surround yourself with negativity and all you want to look for is things to prove that your negative thoughts are correct, that is all you're going to see. But if you take yourself out of that and you go, what else could possibly be? And you focus on that, you steer where you stare, and that's where you go. But you're right. That gratitude, if you want to see more of it, you will. That's up to
Yep.
you.
And listen, I always like to remind people, like, your brain was not made to make you happy. Your
Yeah.
brain, which is a million years old, right? I mean, God created us way back when to survive. So your
Yeah.
brain is made to look at what's wrong, because
Yeah.
that's what's going to keep you safe. There's a dinosaur
That's
coming, or
easy.
there's no food, or
Yes.
whatever. So that's how your brain is wired. So you have to rewire your brain to look at what
Yeah.
was right. So
Yeah.
by doing gratitude and saying, okay, God, what is good in my life today? And I want to thank you for it. It rewires your
Yeah.
brain, but it's got to be a practice. You got to keep doing it, because you're
Yeah.
naturally made to survive, not to thrive.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, this has been so wonderful. Margie, thank you for just all of your wisdom, for this wonderful story to remind us that even when we think that we're on the right path, God can change it in a moment. And when He says move, He will. And we'd better hold on tight because
You better
it's
hang
going.
on tight. That's for
It's going.
sure.
I love it. So I want to ask you the question that I ask every guest on this podcast, and that is, what is one perspective that you would encourage listeners to apply today?
For sure is a 10-5-5. Start your morning.
Mm,
Start your morning that way, and quiet, get quiet. God speaks, but you have to
yeah.
make time. Even if it's, quiet can be very scary sometimes.
Yeah.
Even set a timer for 1 minute, and then
Yeah.
maybe in a couple of days, set a timer for 2 minutes of just
Hmm.
sitting and say, Lord, what do you have to say to me today? And
Yeah.
he will fill that space, and he will guide you. And then trust
Yes.
that what he envisions for you is so much bigger than you could ever envision for yourself. So let
Mm,
go of that stuff
amen.
that he's not wanting for you, because what he wants is so much better.
Yes. Oh, and that's such a great analogy even for your life. He's saying, let go of this physical stuff because I have bigger and better spiritual stuff for you, and you don't have time for it. Oh,
Exactly.
that's so
Exactly.
great. I love that. Friend, if you're listening and today's conversation stirred something in you, maybe you're walking through a shift, a surrender, or a redefining season, I would love to hear from you. This podcast exists because of real stories of real faith in real life. And if you feel like God is writing something meaningful in your life right now and you want to share it, I would love to hear from you. Reach out at perspectivesintopractice.com so we can chat. I would love that. And maybe your takeaway today from this is, if you're not feeling peace, to pause, get quiet, ask God what might be misaligned. Maybe it's a house or a job or a friendship, or maybe it's just simply having too much stuff. God's plan is always better than what we could engineer ourselves. And when He says move, He moves. And remember, even small shifts in perspective can lead to big changes. Now go put those perspectives into practice. Talk to you next time.
Thank you so much for listening. Hey, if you enjoyed the episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, shout it from the rooftops, leave a rating and a review, all the things. And to catch the latest from me, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at margie.gp6, or go to my website at margiruiz.com, and make sure to sign up for my weekly newsletter. Thanks again. I'll see you next time. Bye.